Yes, sir.
And before we get into the quarterback situation, you guys hired Robert Saleh as your new
Mhm.
head coach, and I mean I know he's new, and it's hard to kind of fully evaluate him as it stands today. But what differences to this point have you all recognized, or have you recognized between he and Adam Gase, the previous head coach? Have there been any noticeable differences between these two?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one, what you saw, and you saw this when they drafted Zach and the conversation that they had with him. What he said to me was like, "You're not going to have to save this organization. We're going to uplift you." And I think that that's a big message to these young quarterbacks, right? Who come in highly drafted. You put the entire weight of these franchises on you, right? It's similar to what happened to Dwayne Haskins, right? When he got drafted in Washington, like so much pressure was put on him, right? Not just by the team, but also, I mean, he grew up in PG County, right? So like again, that's a lot of pressure for these young guys. So I think one, you see the energy, the commitment, the transparency. I think also the investment in the defensive line for a really long time, right? Like Darrell Revis to me is probably, if he's not the greatest cornerback to ever play the game, he's second behind Prime. Like it's Dion and him, and that's it, right? For a long time, the Jets put all these resources into the secondary, right? You signed Cromartie, you drafted Kyle Wilson, right? And you ignored the edge, right? Like you guys in Washington, you got Chase Young, right? You had Ryan Kerrigan, right? You got Montez Sweat. Like that's where the resources should go to because you're closer to the quarterback. That's where you impact the game. And that's what you've seen with Robert Saleh, right? You signed Carl Lawson, you signed Vinny Curry, you signed him away from Philly, you signed Sheldon Rankins away from the Saints. Like now you put them with Quentin Williams in a four-man front. You're trusting that defense to get home, right? You get CJ Mosley back, which is big. So I think one, it's a commitment to changing the way this team has operated over the last few years. I think two, also when you hire defensive coaches, you worry that they're only going to be coaches for one side of the ball, right?
Yeah.
He's not like that at all. He's been sitting in on offensive meetings. He brought his hand-picked offensive coordinator from San Francisco, Matt LaFleur's little brother, right? So he clearly has an identity that he wants to establish here, which is right. Taking shots down the field via play action, which is where I think Zach Wilson does really well in, and you saw that at BYU. And you got receivers now. You got Elijah Moore, you got Denzel Mims, you still got Crowder, right? And you took Keelan Cole from Jacksonville. So now you have depth at the wide receiver position too, which is something you haven't really had in a long time. So what I like, and again, Adam Gase, I remember when we fired Todd Bowles, I said, listen, man, Adam Gase is probably the worst dude that you're gonna hire. Because whenever you hire guys from your division and you don't, and especially like right after
How
they
do you
got
not
fired,
see it? How did you not
that
see it before you hired him? Come
right,
on.
right, exactly, right. Like I was like, yo, this is not gonna work. This is gonna be terrible. And then sure enough, he was in Miami. He was in
Yeah,
He in
Miami.
Miami.
Miami, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
messed up
Miami.
Tannehill
Look
career.
at Tannehill, right? Like look at Tannehill. Tannehill gets away from him, suddenly he's an MVP candidate, right? And I think where Miami is now, like they fire Gates, they hire Brian Flores, they draft Tua, right? Like they won 10 games last year. Like removing Adam Gase, I think is such a big deal, right? Because one, now you don't have a coach that's on a different timeline from the general manager, right? So you hired Joe Douglas last year, but Joe Douglas didn't sign anybody last year because he knew he's like, listen, I'm gonna fire this motherfucker after the season's over. So you got a coach that's on the same timeline with your general manager, and that creates synergy, right? So like for example, with you guys, Ron Rivera and your general manager, they came in together. You know what I'm saying? Like Dan Snyder has become more hands off, like couldn't keep his hands to himself, so now he's going to become even more hands off. But also in Dallas, it's similar, right? Like you guys hired McCarthy, and you paired Jerry Jones' son. So like that's what you want to see. You want to see guys that grow together. So I'm really excited to see what he does because even in San Francisco, he lost Bosa, he lost DeForest Buckner when they traded him to the Colts, and that defense didn't miss a beat. That defense did not miss a beat, and I'm excited to see this defense with that front four and CJ Mosley.
So
Jets always had a solid little front seven too, man.
Yeah, with Leo and Q, but also Leo didn't do well here, but he's better with the Giants, right? So
Yeah.
like that's kind of what you see.
I thought he was gonna be nasty with y'all.
Oh, me too, man, me too. And they were calling him the next Reggie White
Yeah.
when they drafted. I was like, I thought we were good.
Yeah.
so what are the I know you mentioned he's involved with all areas of the team so far, especially early on, which is pretty important. What do you think his top priorities are for at least for 2021? What is his top priorities? Is this simply to just like do a quick fix of things, or is it like managing or leading or developing? What do you think is his top priorities for the Jets in 2020?
So I think it's developing, man. I think one, whenever you have a young quarterback like Zach, right, who's coming from he's coming from a place that he didn't play a ton of great competition, right? Like at BYU didn't play a ton of top teams. So you want to make sure that you ease him into it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you're going to see them lean on the running game, right, with Michael Carter. You're going to see them lean on the short passing game with Corey Davis, who had a really good year with Tennessee last year. But I think the goal is going to be to be a spot in 2022. I think there's no because one, you have the extra game now, right? Two, you're playing in a division with Miami, who was pretty good last year, Buffalo, who's the best team in that division, hands down from top to bottom, and you have New England, who, again, I didn't really care too much for New England's wide receiver additions, but they added Hunter Henry, they added Jonnu Smith, they fortified an offensive line, and they still got Bill Belichick, right? Who, again, still the best coach in the game. So I think you're not gonna. It's gonna be tough for you to playoff spot right out of the gate. Also, rookie quarterbacks, man, they tend to struggle. They just tend to struggle. That's just kind of the reality. The Dak played really well his rookie year, right? But not everybody's Dak. Like that's also the reality, right? Not everybody's Dak. And I think, yeah. So go ahead.
No, I just had a question because you talking about the quarterback.